Today I'm joined by Siniša Cohadzić. Siniša, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jamie.
No worries. So do you want to start us off then with your early days growing up? Who actually introduced you into football?
Yeah, I always used to play it starting from school and then with my friends and obviously early days. I used to play tennis to be honest, and I was very good at tennis, but ultimately tennis didn't take me where I wanted to go simply because of more financial reasons than anything else. And then I decided to take upon another sport, and luckily enough, I was not bad in football, soccer. I played. I wasn't exceptional, but I was on a decent level.
So did you ever play in grassroots? Where was like the highest you sort of got with playing yourself?
Yeah, I played in Serbia in Division 2. Then I came here in Australia. I played in top level of Victorian football in Australia for a couple of years, and then had a bit of an injury. And then obviously from then on, I started doing my coaching courses, and that's how it all began.
So when you were playing in Serbia, which obviously you are part Serbian as well, so what was that like to be in Serbia to play in the second highest division?
Yeah, well, it wasn't. It was a good level. I was lucky enough because there was a rule of under 21-year-old players. Luckily enough, I was that bonus player that was always needing to play, and luckily enough, I was in the team most of the time, and obviously the level there was a little bit different than to Australia, and I was one of the. I used to play a defensive midfielder role, one of the obviously leaders and talkers on the field. So it helped me obviously shape myself in regards to coaching. Going forward.
So do you prefer playing in Australia or Serbia?
Oh, not really. I mean, if you compare professionalism and that, it's definitely Europe's different to Australia. Australia here, soccer is not number one sport, so ultimately that's why Europe is different, where people live and breathe soccer. It's in its number one sport, so that is the big difference.
So your first main role that you got then was at the Springvale White Eagles FC. So what was that sort of role like, your first actual instinct into the managerial side of things?
Yeah, obviously that was 2008. My first role in football, as when you always start as assistant coach. Pretty much, it's rarely you see anyone starting as a head coach. And I was lucky enough to work with a very good friend of mine, and that's how it all started. We were actually very successful at that point of time with a very young team, and we managed to get that team to the top level of Victorian football, and yeah, that's how I started my career in 2008. For 2 years, I was there, and then I moved on to go and obviously work as a head coach after that.
But you're actually the under-21s head coach at the club that you were first at. So to develop the young players, is that something that you prefer to do, or do you still prefer to work with the older guys?
Yeah, obviously. Listen, I have a variety. I had variety of roles in my coaching career. I've been on all levels of football, to be honest, and I've done probably pretty much most of the roles in football. I've been as a technical director in women's game. I've been a head coach in women's game. I've been a head coach in juniors. I've been a head coach in under 21 space. Head coach in men's football, technical director in men's and junior football. So I've done all possible roles in football that exist. So it shaped me nicely to obviously refine my knowledge and understanding of all levels of football.
So Old Trinity came up next, and then you moved into the amateur football game, and I believe you were the head coach there. So moving into that whole head coach environment, did you prefer that little step up?
Yeah, listen. I always wanted to be a. If I was doing the head coach role, I always wanted to do it in an environment where professionalism is number one priority. Now in Australia, on those lower levels, is not really. It's more amateur level of football, and I had to start somewhere. So now to start somewhere, I had to obviously Old Trinity was. state 5 at that point of time, and that's where I started my head coach career. And after that, I went to Ballarat, which was a state 2 team, where I found myself with a very young team. Where luckily enough, some of those players today play in A-League and played in A-League, and so I was lucky enough to go through that process. But then on after that, I obviously, because I wanted that professionalism more than anything, and I couldn't get it in men's game, obviously because of the more experienced people in front of me, I decided to go into women's game in Ashburton. That's where I started my journey in the women's game in the top level of Victorian football, where I shaped the team and the club and made it professional as I could with the resources.
So when you were working with players that ended up playing in the A-League, you had to see that potential in them. You had to really develop them. So that must be quite something to add to your personal books. But do you know when a player is going to reach that height of the A-League?
Not really. I mean, it's all about opportunity. I mean, if you give a 15, 16 or 17-year-old kid player, you see something in him and you give him an opportunity to play senior football, it's up to them now to take it and take that opportunity and shape their own future. Now, along the way, I can help them and give them advice and develop them. But ultimately, it's going to be the application and development and obviously the will of the player to do, not just in training, but outside of training, to do the right things to get there. But along the way, obviously, I have to be the one that guides them and give them that opportunity. Then it's for them to take it and show themselves.
So Berwick Kings came up as well after your move, but you were also playing at the same time, right? So you were a player manager.
Yeah, I was. That was again Division 4 team, and that was again beginning of my coaching career. And yeah, that to be honest didn't work that well because coaching and playing is very difficult to do in the same time, and that's why that was only contemplated to do that. And after that, I really focused on coaching going forward.
So before you hit that reality check, did you just want to keep playing? You just wanted to find an excuse to constantly be on the pitch?
Yeah, obviously after that I didn't play. I didn't play anymore. I went into coaching after that season, and I obviously went to finish my badges along the way, and that was the beginning of learning for me. And because every single experience that I had in those different clubs and different levels was a learning point for me, and it's given me different tools going forward.
So you mentioned your badges there, but you also mentioned that Australia football isn't the number one sport. So how much have the badges helped you on the pitch, but then also with the whole networking thing in Australia and perhaps the world as well?
Yeah, as football, as everyone thinks they know everything by playing the game, but coaching is a different kind of obviously situation where you're managing a group of players and you're not playing. It's very different, and doing the badges helps you learn things and develop yourself as a coach. Gives you different tools of how to approach different scenarios and different ways of coaching and different ways of conducting a session, and obviously different ways of managing people around you. So it's very valuable doing the badges, learning how to deal with certain situations. So along the way, obviously I've done many courses from bottom to top, and I'll probably be one of the rare coaches that's done the AFC, all the AFC. Obviously badges, and at the same time UEFA badges. So I've gone a long way to develop myself as a coach and as a person, and it's helped me along the way.
So you went to Atlantic Premier in the Premier Victorian League afterwards to be an assistant coach again. So I suppose you would like to keep going. And could you just explain to people what the Victorian side of the game is in America?
Yeah, Victorian side in Australia is so you got A-League, which is the top level of football in Australia, and that's like you call it the Super League, the top league in Australia. It's one league with 12 teams, and then you have all leagues underneath it. So you got each state have got their NPL, which is the so-called second division. Yeah, but it's a semi-professional league. It's not a professional league. So under that professional league that's got 12 clubs, the next league is that one NPL, that Premier League, Victorian Premier League.
So you were balancing your managerial roles for the most part alongside another job?
Yes, definitely. In that point of time, in a space between 2000 and 2020, 2019, I used to work in a factory, to be honest, as operations manager, and at the same time coach every night nearly. I used to juggle because, as I said to you, it's a semi-professional environment. Obviously, the money is not what's like in Europe in professional clubs, and obviously I needed a job, so I used to manage both of them, and that's how I dealt with. Obviously, I was able, luckily enough, to juggle both things.
And did you enjoy juggling it, or would you have obviously preferred to be the manager?
Not really, but life gives you those scenarios where you have to obviously sacrifice for something, and there was obviously if I had a professional environment, a professional club, would have been different. But it was, again, as I said, as it is for players, that they have to wait for an opportunity. It was the same for me as a coach. I was just waiting for an opportunity to get a job that's going to be full-time.
Which eventually you ended up doing. But before you did, there was still a series more of clubs that you joined. So Clifton Hill was up next. And could you just talk to me about the environment there?
Yeah, Clifton Hill was a division. If we go by the pyramid here, you'll probably be third division. And I was again assistant coach with a good friend of mine. We had a okay year there, not so successful, but in mid-range. Again, environment where it wasn't top professionalism. It was semi-professional environment where you train 2 nights a week and a game on the weekend. Again, something that wasn't achievable to do full time. So again, it was a part-time environment where I had to work and obviously juggle training sessions and games.
That must be so hard to get your ideas onto the players in 2 training sessions a week. So was there anything that you had to limit you and your players to? For example, you didn't want to give an instruction to this player because it'll take them too long to comprehend it. Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh, well, you hope that you're dealing with players that can understand and take upon the instructions in 2 sessions a week, and hopefully come game day they can implement it, and that's obviously the difficult part, where you had to give as much as information you can in 90 minutes of a training session.
And how do you go about planning these training sessions? Because if you've got these 2 limited sessions a week, what do you have to cut out to be able to just keep in?
So Tuesday would be a conditioning session where we would focus more on fitness levels than anything else, and Thursday would be a tactical session where we would prepare for the weekend game.
So you're at Football Victoria for less than a year. Did that just not go to plan?
Oh, no, that was at Football Victoria. That was just a part-time role where I helped some obviously younger age groups. So nothing to do with the senior actually environment at that point.
You then became the head coach once again at Easter Zone VCL. Do you like becoming the head coach again? Because obviously you've gone back and forth quite a few times.
Yeah, well, it was always about opportunity, but those were all little jobs that here and there where where I was getting opportunities to help out and develop, especially younger players. That Eastern Zone was all about juniors and younger players. So that was more a TD role than anything else. So I was able to develop the younger players to help them obviously play in that competition where it's best of the best in each zone of Victorian football.
So you joined Ashburton United, not directly after, but it's quite interesting because obviously that's the women's team in the MPL. So what do you like about the women's game that kept you coming back?
Yeah, it wasn't about the women's game, to be honest. It was about me getting an opportunity where I can create a professional environment where I want to be as a coach. And Ashburton came at that point. It was a club that was on the rise, and they wanted a coach that's going to, first of all, at that point of time, save them not to get relegated. And second point, they wanted someone to always improve their resources and the way they run their football club. So I took upon that job just because of the fact that they actually told me that I can create and get the resources that I want to make this club as professional as possible, because that was the highest league in women's game in Victoria after the W League. Yeah, so it was like a second division league. And luckily enough, I had a good support of the board and people around me to be able to create and have the resources needed to at least make the club run in a professional way. So to have the GPSs, the strength and conditioning coaches, the medical team, the assistant coaches, the players training 3 times a week and playing on the weekend. So I really created a high environment, high performance environment, which I really wanted in my coaching career.
So obviously before the high performance stuff comes in, because obviously that takes time to develop, what is the first few things that you do once you sign the contract, once you're the manager?
Yeah, the first thing is that you get what you want to be happy in that environment, to really be motivated to go in that environment and try to put your best foot forward and get the required results for the club. I mean, as I said, my passion was to coach. And for me to coach, I only look at that motivating myself in regards to making sure that I have the right environment to be able to coach. And that's what I created at that club.
You were a technical director in 2019. So what did that role actually entail for you? Because we hear about directors of football, but what is a technical director?
Yes, a technical director. Well, I've done both roles, technical director and head coach at the same time. So technical director is more about developing younger players. It's about making sure that you develop them in obviously blueprint of the club, and that's another thing I designed. I designed the blueprint of the club of how we want to develop the players and what principles we want players to learn to be able to eventually get to the senior team. And technical director role is very important to be able to guide that process and to make sure that those principles are implemented. And it's important to obviously make sure that the coaches understand the philosophy of the club and that they are on the same bus as everyone else in regards to obviously developing players in the same ways as everyone at the club.
So did you prefer that, Robin, to develop the younger players, to see them come through?
Yeah. Oh well, I enjoy developing younger players. I always enjoyed that. There's a great reward at the end of the day if you see a young player succeed and get to the top level. And there's no better feeling when that happens. But at the same time, my passion was always to be a head coach. But obviously the technical director role gave me another avenue of going into full-time coaching, going into full-time working in football.
You were at South Melbourne and you completed quite some achievements because you won the league with the under-21s and you also scored over 100 goals. So let's talk about scoring over 100 goals first. How do you set up a side to score that many goals?
Yeah, when I came as a technical director at South Melbourne in 2019, I had a role to revamp the junior side of the club, and to design a blueprint that's going to be exciting, and at the same time develop players in different ways, especially with the ball and without the ball. And doing that, I took upon the job in the under 21 competition, uh, playing the way that blueprint was designed. So at the same time as I developed the younger players from under 13s upwards to play in a certain way and to follow the club's philosophy and the blueprint that I've designed, I actually implemented that same blueprint and the way of playing football with the under 21 team. Uh, Luckily enough, that brought a lot of goals and a lot of wins, and ultimately the premiership and championship with that team by playing by that blueprint design. And that was success in itself, because when you achieve something by a design and by a process, it becomes even sweeter.
So, out of 10, how intense do you want your team to play? Because for me, I want my team to be going at it full pelt. And I heard that you like your intense teams as well.
Yes, ultimately, I used to be a coach that wanted to go full on for 90 minutes, 95 minutes of football. But along the way, I learned that it's sometimes it's possible to do it in a one game or two games, but it's impossible to do it for the entire year. So you got to be very smart of how you implement that style of football, and that you make sure that there's certain triggers and certain times in a game of football where you obviously have to sit in a mid block and wait for an opportunity to actually implement that high intensity football.
So, if you were in a professional full time environment, would you implement a bit more intensity than if you were in a semi pro environment?
Not really. Not really. I mean, it's all about how you train. I believe that that's the bottom line of how intense you're going to play game day. If you have a good plan, if you have a good program, if you set yourself training sessions in a way to actually back up the way you actually play football, the results will come. You got to make sure that your periodization is right. You got to make sure that players are not tired, that they're obviously always fresh to be able to compete and implement that style of football on the weekend. And with that comes a lot of planning and making sure that that you follow, especially the loading, and that you make sure that the players are never overloaded, because with overload comes injuries, comes fatigue, and that's when you have problems. So it's very critical that you make sure that you spread that load during the week, but at the same times you got to train with the right intensity. And if you're going to push those intensities very high, you need to make sure that the training sessions are shorter, so the players don't over fatigue.
So, in 2023, you joined the Philippines. What has that been like for you? Because that to me seems like a really big step in your journey.
Yes, so well, as being a technical director at South Melbourne, and obviously winning the championship and premiership in under 21s, I still was in an environment where I obviously did not coach on high level. And luckily enough, a good friend of mine, Mark Tocaso, asked me to be his assistant coach at Philippines women's national team, and because he at that point took the head coach role, and at the same time for me to coach as a head coach under 17s and under 20 women's team. So I was delighted with that, and that's a professional environment I was looking for, and it was a great step up for myself to go in that environment. And this is where I learned a lot about football. In a professional environment with staff of 30 people around myself, and obviously Mark as a head coach, and when I went on the under 17s Asian Cup as a head coach. To manage a staff of 30 people around you is something that you learn a lot. and it's a professional environment that I always crave for.
And then when you were in this Asian Cup, how did you achieve? What did you want to do? And did you manage to meet your expectations?
Yeah, well, we were the first Philippine national team in juniors that got qualified for the Asian Cup. At the Asian Cup, we had a great result where we're just unlucky for one goal. We missed out of getting to the World Cup, and it was a great experience. It was an experience where I learned a lot of things, and at the same time, it was a competition where everything was on professional level, and it was a competition where I had so much staff and so many people around me to help me out, and at the same time, I needed to manage that. And this is where, as a coach, you if you want to be on that top level, it's an experience that has shaped me now today, who I am.
So is it easy to call up your players to the Philippine national team? How often are you spending to look at the players? Because obviously you're still working in Melbourne, right?
Yeah, well, we had ID camps all the time, especially we went to America a lot of times to have ID camps and look at new players. And we were luckily enough supported by the Philippine Federation, and we were able to go and ID players in especially in America, because there's a lot of dual Filipino American citizen, and where we were able to get new players and be very competitive at that level, both on senior and junior level.
So with your role in Melbourne and South Melbourne FC, what role is that entailing for you? Because obviously you only signed in 2025, so it's only this year.
Yeah, so obviously I got a call from a director of South Melbourne. That was my junior technical when I was a technical director in juniors, and obviously he gave me a call to come and coach at South Melbourne senior team. At that point, we were in a situation where we were on the third last on the ladder, and there was some changes were needed to be made at the club. And luckily enough, at that point of time, I was free and not had no commitment with Philippine national team, and that's where it began. That's where it began a very a good period of results and good period in my coaching managerial career of having some big success in a big league.
So in your career, that's going to be lasting, I'm sure, for quite many more years. So what would you like to achieve come your final managerial game?
Yeah, it's all about challenging myself as a football coach, especially in top level environments like I am now. From that challenge and from those obviously environments, you don't know where this is going to take you. It's simply you got to focus on what you have in front of you now and do the best with the team that you're obviously managing and coaching, and things will work out itself. I like to be very loyal to where I am in the environment that are coaching in, and time will tell. I always focus just in the job in front of me, and that's where I want to do my give my best and give all my effort to make the club and the team succeed, and the results will obviously show me the pathway going forward.
Siniša, I really appreciate you joining me today. All the best of luck with this season and beyond.
Thank you, Jamie.